I like making things. Any excuse to making things. I like to think about things that I want to be good at and learn about. Work backwards like, all right, what can I make? Hey everyone, I'm Dan Scott. We are in County Limerick, a place called Adair, and this is my studio. So most of you people know me as Dan the designer and kind of teacher around the design tools, but I'm a learner at heart and a maker at heart. I love making things on the computer, but I also love making things that come out. And that's what I want to show you today. We've got my studio, okay, my workshop, and I want to show you where I kind of take things from the computer and kind of get them out into the real world. All right, so let's get out of the chair you've seen me in. You've seen this space. Let me show you the rest of the space. All right, this is like, this slice here is the designy bit. This is computer design stuff. Behind it, the big mess, that is the other side of YouTube. All my soundboards and cameras all set up here, mics, and this bit, my design side. This is where I spend 60% of my day. I made the desk so kind of like got it to my height and my kind of angles, and I wanted to learn this like join here, and I was like, oh, I want to make it. So the excuse is to turn it into practical table build. I love doing these sorts of projects. It suits me, but also it's something to learn. I love the learning part. All right, on the desk, the things I use the most, like I've been sent lots of mice by people to be designer reviewed. I ended up with this thing that I bought way back at the beginning. It's a Logitech mouse. It's not very expensive, even though I've got a drawer full of ones that people have sent me to be better. I end up with this thing. This is a Keychron keyboard, has this beautiful click. It reminds me of old computers. I feel like a gamer, and I spent ages picking the buttons. You can pick different clicks. That's the noise that I love. This keyboard that only came in a wired version when I first got it, and so you have to make concessions of like, I know, I'll drill my own hole in it. When you buy something new and fancy, it feels a bit more intrusive to drill through somebody else's stuff, but drilling a big hole that serves your purposes, totally fine when you made it. Wacom-esque thing, it's Sense Labs, great for kind of hand drawing things on digital. Laptop stand setup, 4K monitor, it's an LG monitor, not the super expensive one. There is a kind of a trouble where people are like, I need the best color corrected monitors and setup. I like some variation in some of this stuff because that's what the end user's gonna see. Getting it perfect here, only to find it different on other things. I like the difference here. Other important things on my desk are some of these measuring tools. Like, this is where the transition happens. This is like digital, digital, digital. I wonder what it's gonna look like in real world. On the screen, it looks this big, but then you're like, all right, that's too small, or that's too big. That's kind of like my first step of like getting it off the screen. For any of the gear that I'm mentioning, I'll put a list down below of all the gear that I've got if you're interested. I'll put the big stuff that I kind of mentioned. If you see something in the video and you're like, hey, what is that? Where do I get that? Let me know in the comments and I'll go through and make sure I update the list with everything and where I got it, and if there's a price, I'll throw that in there too. All right, this is my like hands-on maker area. This is like a stand-up desk I made, matches the other one up there. My Pilates teacher, I showed her my space because I got sore kind of shoulder and back, and she was like, what you need to do is you need to separate your laptop from your keyboard, and it needs to be about this height and this height. So I was like, all right, I could spend ages trying to buy something, design something, or I went with the really utilitarian version. It's like if you had no money, you could still do these things. This is my version of it. This is a vinyl cutter. It's Cricut Maker 3. I use it for cutting out stickers. I have a love of making my own stickers. I also make my own t-shirts. Like this one here is something that I made, and you just cut out vinyl and basically iron it on with a heat press. This thing here cuts them out for you. You got to do a bit of weeding. That's what I do on this mat here. And then I throw them in the press. This is my very first 3D printer. This is a Prusa Mark III. So the very first thing I made was like some drawers for my workbench downstairs. It was just some simple things, and I was like, I needed something. I was like, oh, I want to 3D print it. And I couldn't believe it. You like buy it, have it in your house, and me, Dan, could take stuff from my computer and actually escape it from the computer and actually bring it to life. It was awesome. And this is the Prusa XL. This is what happens when you get really excited with a little printer. You need to buy a big printer. That one does one color, one type of material. This one does 5 in a row. It prints faster and nicer. And That's the way I've justified it to myself anyway. And when your 7-year-old comes to you and says, hey dad, for Halloween, I would like to be space police. I'm like, no problem. We found a model, we downloaded it, we printed it full size, and then we went and painted it with each other. I do love it when we've got, I don't know, connection through something we've made together. Totally fits. All right, so this is my kind of like clean space. Often a lot of designs start here and then they move down to the messy area. Let me show you this part. All right, so this is garage land. This is where I need to cut things, I need to weld things together, things need to be ground, painted, anything that needs mess to fly around and be away from computers, this is where this goes on. I know myself well enough that I need like 2 creative projects going on. I need one, this car. There's always a project going on with this one. And then there's always a second one that I need to kind of take a break from it to move to when I'm cursing at this one. All right, so this is kind of where I do most of my work. It is a bench I made early on. This is the stuff that I use the most and it's all kind of within reach. I've redesigned it a few times. I do like having everything at hand. So this little rack here is a 3D print, that thing for my screws. Just little things you're like, oh, it'd be cool if. You're like, hang on, I can make if happen. Go upstairs, design it, print it off, come down here, realize it doesn't work, and then make the version that does work. All right, this is one of my favorite upgrades for kind of my, I don't know, feng shui and OCD is these kind of drawer organizers. It's super modular, you can decide, all right, I've got some bigger bolts, so it needs to go into a kind of like a 4x4, and then these ones are just really long, and I don't have too many of them, so they need to go in something that's 3 deep. The cool thing about these is you've got this kind of pattern on the bottom that matches up to the grid system down here. And it means they just kind of like, it doesn't matter if you get them close, they just kind of fall into position. And if you need to move them over, everything is kind of like super aligned, which is the zen of the maker. Look at that. All right, so I've kind of talked about having 2 projects. Got the car project for the tinkering, and this is my current hands-on creative project, and it's building the ultimate designer's desk. This is going to be the best desk ever made. I've gone and printed a sign, a big sign that's going to be the size of this desk, and I'll cut it to it. And it's good timing because like this showed up just today. The guy handed over the fence, the giant box of this sign printed. So I want to see if this thing actually looks okay, because I could be talking a good game here. Let's go see if it actually works. Aha, it's awesome. Squiggly lines. That's what I was looking for. Subtle, kind of look good on camera, not too much. There you go. So the centerpiece, like I tried to pretend like, oh, this old thing, I love this thing. It's a 1969 Datsun. I imported it to Ireland from Japan. I've always modified cars, but it's always been like the thing I've been driving. So it's like, quick, get home from work, fix something, make sure it's back together before I have to go to work the next day. And it was always like wheels and suspension and easy stuff. And then I got a space, bought a garage with a house. And I was like, I want something that I can pull apart and not have to put together in an hour. So that's where I got this thing. This is the car I've always wanted. It is been heavily modified. The thing is, it's not been done super well, but it's been done by me. That's what I like. I get to figure it out, test it myself, learn about it. It's kind of the same thing. It feels different, cars and design, but for me it doesn't. It feels like understanding something, learning it. I do a lot of things that are like, look good, but aren't very functional. The thing is mildly low. It's because I think it looks cool. It makes it way worse to drive. It handles way worse, but it looks cool. That's my designer spirit right there. All right, recent kind of design thing that I made for it is this thing here. It's a catch can. You can get generic ones. I needed one that wraps around these brake boosters, and I wanted to look cool, so I got to make my own. This is where like the 3D scanner comes in handy. Like I just got to do a quick scan, take it into the computer, build the model around the actual car, no guessing, no measuring, and just kind of build it up, print it off, and then you have like a final product. It'll survive in there. It's the right kind of material, so it'll survive the heat, and it's a one and only. I decided to make my own center console. It came with no seats, no carpet, no nothing. It was pretty bare in here, just a gear stick. I had 2 rules. It didn't look really bad, it was sympathetic, and it had cup holders. My son was my cup holder. I'd take him places and he'd hold my hot coffee and complain. I 3D scanned it, I then molded it, and then, yeah, printed it all out, glued it all together, and upholstered it. And it came out real good. All right, that's my space. I'll leave a gear list in the description, and there'll be a link down there to the stuff that I've kind of mentioned. If there's anything in here that you're seeing, you're like, hey, what is that? Let me know in the comments and I'll update that list. Okay, so yeah, if you do want to get stuff or similar things, see what I've bought. And if you get the chance and you are in this position to design your own space, I got a couple of tips. Things, I've done a lot of them. Things that work for me is making sure that you design it for yourself. You have the tendency of like making it beautiful for Instagram, but not actually that functional for you, and you regret it. So design for you. Doesn't have to be perfect, but perfect for you. The other one is to list out the requirements, like real simple, just like, I'd like it to do these things and have these functions. I find that really useful. So when you are kind of designing it, you kind of at least got them all in your head when you are kind of making it up. The next one is kind of a simple mood board. It's really exciting. I love it at the beginning of the project. It costs you nothing, but what you'll find is like, you'll be searching Pinterest or Instagram or something, you'd be like, oh, I didn't even know that, that existed. What is this genre of weird desk design? And you end up down rabbit holes and you end up kind of, I don't know, getting more excited and maybe having a bit more ownership of like, I'm just gonna put in IKEA stuff. I find that's where, I don't know, the passion for the project and the language and the fun often comes from. So spend that kind of time at the beginning before you start making. All right, that is my studio tour. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Are we fading to black, Bill? Okay, good.